And he turned and goes, sorry, mate, I didn't realise it was you. And I was like, too late for sorry now, mate, my chest is killing. Funny thing about, learning a second language is some of the unsavoury words tend to be the first ones you learn.
So, Jimmy, we're here at the home ground of Brothers Penrith.
Yep.
I believe you've got a bit to do here this year.
Yeah, mate, doing a little bit of helping out, which is good, keeps me involved in footy. Obviously, still in a part-time role, so I keep my weekends free where I can, get to watch my own kids, and which is important to me now because, for so long, in the footy industry, you lose your weekends and you miss a lot of that. So, it's nice to be around and come down a couple of days a week through the pre-season, and then it'll sort of bounce back just to once a week through the season. But it's nice to be able to, pass on some of my experience and the skills I've got through my career.
So is it, kind of you're helping out the playmakers, or what type of role? Or are you the slave driver during pre-season, mate, making them run up hills and around the park?
No, I like watching them. I've actually said I've got to start jumping in myself. I've got a bit of a nines tournament coming up at the end of January, so I've got to get some fitness into myself. But I think just across the board in any direction, obviously Jake Foster is the head coach here, and he had a bit of a career with the Bulldogs and stuff like that. So he's just said, wherever you want to jump in, wherever you can help out, mate, he appreciates it. So I'm enjoying it so far, and I'll be back there here this Arvo, actually.
Well, it is good when you're standing under the shady cover and you're watching the boys do laps. Practice work. Mate, is there anything in particular that you kind of see these days in young playmakers or young rugby league players in general that you think's super important and fundamental that maybe doesn't get taught or emphasised enough? Is there anything you kind of identified there?
Yeah, I think there's a fair bit. I think everything's got so structured now. I think, in junior footy and that, kids are overcoached, and they're not taught the basics of just looking up at the defence and understanding where you've got an advantage and how you create that. I think, everyone playing to a point on the field, really promotes a sort of one-shot mentality. So we go to this part of the field and we've got one shot to try and beat them, whereas that's not the case. Every time you receive the ball, you've got 6 tackles, and for, you go back around, the commentators back in the day with the good halves, they talk about guys being 2-3 plays ahead of the game, and I think that sort of mentality has sort of been lost or not taught. Yeah, I think there's plenty there, but I think, it's getting way too structured, and kids are getting overcoached and losing their own individual skills and brilliance, because people are trying to put them in these structured footy.
Was that kind of your approach to playing? I mean, obviously you've got to have loose structures to get to certain points on the field, but, you almost treat every play as a new opportunity trying to break the line or score or something like that. Is that how you tried to kind of think of it, like less cluttering in the mind almost, and just like, let's have a look what's in front of us and go from here?
Yeah, I think I was very lucky. I had really good coach, and obviously my old man had a real big influence on me early on. So I was taught really well about understanding rugby league, and as much as the game evolves, the basics of rugby league will always stay the same. And, I find it crazy that, guys talk about playing eyes-up footy, because to me that's the only thing you can play. Like, how can you play a game and not be looking at what they're doing and things like that? So, that was my thing as a half, that's your job to, bring out the abilities of the guys around you. If you've got guys with good attributes, how do you get them the ball so they can showcase that? And how do you create space for guys around you? And you're looking for opportunities where you've got an advantage. That's the crust of it, really. I suppose if you've got an advantage, you've got 3-on-2, you've got an advantage. If you've got a big guy on a little guy, you've got an advantage. If you've got a tired defender and you can take him on, you've got an advantage. Like, that's, as a half, that's what the game is built around. So,
did you get a chance to play much 6 again footy? Was it just at the back end of your career in the UK or Europe? Yeah,
pretty much, I think. It sort of come in right at the end.
Would have you loved to have been around in the NRL with that rule? Are you the sort of player?
I think it's a mix. I think there's good things about it because obviously the game flows a bit, but then sometimes I think when you if you tally up at the end of a game, the amount of actual penalties and then combine them with the 6 agains, because really that's what they are. It's a penalty, but without stopping the play. Sometimes you can look and you go, geez, there's a lot of penalties. If they were all penalties in a game, we'd be blowing up. So I think sometimes it can have a lot of effect, and obviously on fatigue and back-to-back sets and that. And I think if referees, again, and I think there's a problem with footy now, is they're trying to referee the game in black and white, and rugby league has never been black and white. It's filled with grey. So I think if, instead of trying to get everything black and white, if we can coach our referees on, the feel for the game, and, if a guy's half his foot offside there, does it have an effect on the outcome of the game? No. If he's, a metre offside there, does it? Look, that does have a big effect. Pull him back there. So I think, it's never going to be black and white, never has been, never will be. So I think, the more referees have an understanding and a feel for the game, then that's better as well.
Speaking of black and white, actually, so you're obviously doing some coaching here with Brothers Penrith, but just recently you came out of retirement, played for your junior club, hometown club, the mighty Ourimbah Magpies on the Central Coast.
Yeah.
What was that like, being back at your junior club and being back out there playing football?
Yeah, it was good. It was awesome. I came back and I was sort of flirting with the idea of maybe having a run around, and caught up with a guy, Johnny Coleman, who'd been around Ourimbah since I was there as a kid, for a long time, and sort of mentioned it, and he said, mate, if you're going to play, come back and have a year with us. And it was awesome. Obviously, Ourimbah had just got back into first grade after 4 or 5 years of not having a first grade side. And, to see a lot of young kids come through, get their first opportunity in first grade was awesome. And, to finish up and give back to where it all began was really enjoyable. We had some tough losses and some, games we should have won that we lost, but that's footy, and that's learning with young kids and learning, playing their first year of first grade footy. But, to their credit, they always held their gloves up every week, and it was an enjoyable year.
I mean, the great thing about local footy clubs is often they're the same people that are just running them for decades on end.
Yeah.
You played there as a kid, came through the senior ranks, 19s, was it as well at Ourimbah?
Yeah. Yeah, I was playing my first year of 19s and then got pulled up. It's when I made my first grade debut. Ourimbah was in the Jim Beam Cup at the time.
Right.
Did that, and then, went down to Sydney after that.
Were there any blokes from back then when you were last there still involved with the club, or even committee members from back then?
Yeah, a lot of familiar faces, obviously, around the run of the club. Still some old heads there. A lot of the guys I played with, they were still playing, but they were playing open league.
Third grade, essentially.
Yeah, so I actually had a good mate of mine, Jimmy Holt, who was captain coach in open grade, and he was playing his 300th senior game. So for that game, I come up early and I had a run for 10 minutes in opens with him before going and playing first grade after. And then I actually played both games. I played open grade and first in my last game, just have one last game with them. So, yeah, it was good fun, mate.
I was going to say, those poor blokes for the other team in opens, they think they're just coming for a cruisy game on a Sunday afternoon, and they see this bloke, he's played a few Origins, he played for Australia on the other side. I mean, so you came back, you were 38 years old, I suppose. Hadn't kind of played footy for a couple of years. You took it easy, right?
Yeah, I thought that was the intention. I thought, you know what, playing in the halves, you can just stay out of the physical stuff a bit, kick well, push them around the park. But when you get out there, you just go back to the same competitive stuff, and then you get a bit, there's no way I'm going to let this, local first grader put it over me. So then you get all your competitiveness back. But yeah, well, it was good, mate. It gave me a outlet to release some frustrations once a week, which was good.
It was a bit of a disingenuous question because I kind of knew the answer, mate. I did my research and I spoke with your coach this year, Ben Bell.
Yeah.
And I chatted to him after round one. So it was a big moment for the club, first game back in first grade for about 6 years or so. And I said, and how'd Jimmy go? And this is what he told me. I asked him if he was going to take it easy, and he said, oh yeah, I'm too old, I'm too smart for that belly, I'm not going to show and go or anything like that. And then he said, but he must have done it 10 times, the maniac. He had a fat lip at the end of the game and a big smile on his face. He's a football player. You can't beat that stuff out of him. So almost kind of goes to what you say. You had the impression to play with the dinner suit on, but once you're out there.
Yeah, your instincts take over, and that's how I've always played. So it's hard to change it just because you're getting a bit older.
Yeah. You spoke about your dad before. Rugby league man, was he?
So my old man, he was a Campbelltown boy, St. Greg's, went to St. Greg's, went out early, captain coach in Orange Sims, was down at Queanbeyan Blues just before Canberra Raiders came into the competition, played under Don Ferner down there, who coached Australia, and went to Griffith and all that, captain coach in the year Raiders set up. So, mate, actually funny, like I debuted down in Melbourne under Craig Bellamy, and Craig Bellamy had played with and against me old man.
Is that right?
Yeah, because Bill Ake was playing out at Oberon, and my old man was captain coaching at Sims, so they played against each other in that Group 10 comp, and then in the local rep side played together. So, yeah, old man probably didn't talk himself up too much, but some people that I know that have spoke to him said he was a very good footballer and very, very tough footballer.
You know, you spoke about how just kind of rewarding it was and fun to be back at Ourimbah. What about the other side of things? So for all the good stories about people enjoying former NRL players going back, there are all those kind of like hometown heroes for other clubs who they see one and they go, right, they want to scalp.
Yeah.
Did you get the sense that blokes were like lining you up during the games this year? Like they wanted to put one on Jimmy Maloney so they could go back to the pub and tell their mates?
Yeah, no, I got asked that quite a bit, mate. Most people were all right, there's a lot of guys. A couple I got in little verbal battles like always, which most of the time it was fair. I think there was one guy hit me late in the game when we were beating them, and I wasn't that happy about it, and I let him know. But, no, mate, most of them were good, Quite a few of them afterwards, would say, how cool it was to play against you, and that's cool, to say, the respect that people give you there, and,
sure.
And sort of go, how good it is to sort of be coming back and playing in that competition. And I think I've been a big believer. Like, obviously, I was born out Orange, so I was originally a country boy, and always me and my missus used to speak about, whether it was go out bush and, take the kids out there for a couple of years and captain coach or something like that, because I just don't think bush footy gets enough, enough development or whatever, or they're not thought of enough, in how things are run. So, it's nice to sort of be able to give back. And I think, not only, did you go back and help Ourimbah, me going back, Dave Fifita, Matty Moylan were playing at Kincumber, Blake Austin was playing at Berkeley Vale. There's a lot of other guys, and it just creates interest in the competition. So more people turn up to watch, more people pay their $5 as they come to the gate, which helps the local footy clubs. And I think that's what it's all about, So, if you can help, get a sponsor to invest some money and get something out of it, then it's all for the right reasons.
How was it actually because obviously you said David Fifita was at Kincumber, Matty Moylan was there as well, Blake Austin at Berkeley Vale, Terence CU was up at Toothly. There were quite a few of you former NRL blokes in the Central Coast comp. What was it like when you came up against each other? Do you look out for each other, or is it the sort of thing where you're the one who wants to put on the shot to try and get the bragging rights over them?
Yeah, no, it was always good. Obviously, a lot of those boys you'd come across in your career at different times, so you'd have a yarn beforehand. And I remember Fifita, actually, we should have beat him at Kincumber, and there was a bit of drama off the field, and Fifita come back and set up 2 tries right at the end. And actually, I remember once tackling him, and I was around his legs, and he just dropped a knee onto my chest, and I was like, "Oh, you bastard!" And he goes, "Sorry, mate, I didn't realise it was you." And I was like, "Too late for sorry now, mate. Your chest is killing." But mate, yeah, it's good fun, and as I said, I think it's good for Central Coast footy. It's creates a bit of interest, and people enjoy it and getting around. I think that's a good thing. The more you can get people, turning up to spend a Saturday or a Sunday there and watch some footy and enjoy it and create some interest back around local footy, then the better.
I've actually heard you speak about this before, about the value of former NRL players going back to local footy, bush footy comp.
Yeah.
And I've heard you speak about a few ideas where you reckon the NRL could really take a leading role in making this better.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think I said on my podcast that, I find one of the most easy solutions is the NRL just put a pool of, say it's $1 million a year, which, in the big scope of things for development is not much, and get guys that are, have just come out of the game that are still in that transitioning phase, incentivise them with, pay each one of them $30,000 if they go and captain coach in a bush club, because then you've got a guy who's going there. The bush footy club, they might be able to pay him, 20 odd grand and do that. So there's 50,000 plus they get them a job. Yep. That's a pretty decent wicket, for a guy. So it's helping players transition away from footy, still keeping them involved in the game so they can share their expertise. And they're out the bush, they go out there, they live in the community. If they got families, their young kids come and play. So then they're around the junior training nights, watching their kids, passing on their skills and their information. And I think that's a no-brainer. And then, as we said before, with guys playing, it creates interest. So then people in the town start going, oh, I'll go watch him play this weekend. So then they go up, they pay their, $5 or whatever to go watch. And then they, they buy something at the local canteen, and it all circles the money back throughout the local community and does good for the game. And I think, it does so much more, and this is not taken away from a game development officer and all those guys that, do their best. But my sort of view on it is that offers so much more than a game development officer turning up to a school and running a couple of clinics with kids. I just think it's an absolute no-brainer. I think it's the most easy to implement, common sense approach. But there's not always common sense in a lot of decisions, mate. That's a problem.
You spoke about that, like the impact it can have. When you were a young bloke coming through at Ourimbah, were there any of those type of former pros that were there, former, top grade Sydney players, maybe not at the Magpies, but around the comp that you kind of remember, and how you maybe kind of benefited from that?
There were different guys. So when I was sort of coming through and Ourimbah, we had a few, like obviously guys that had gone down to Sydney, not necessarily played first grade, but had been in, Sydney systems and things like that, which again, as a young kid, you always look up and went, oh, wow, how cool is this? So I know before, obviously on the coast, Cliffy Lyons was playing down in minor. I think he actually sent the club broke. He was earning too much. But
advertisement for your idea.
But, there's guys around, and, as a young kid, I remember Matty Orford being around as a Central Coast junior, coming around and being like, oh, wow, when he was playing through Manly and things like that. So, young kids, you sort of forget the impact you can have, but young kids just get a buzz out of seeing them around the place. So you can imagine those ex-NRL guys just walking down the street through town and stuff like that. And, there's all these kids that are living in those communities that seeing them, that have watched them do their thing on TV. Like how awesome that would be to so I think it just gives the whole community a boost.
You've also got the rare distinction of playing local footy in a couple of different countries. So here, you obviously went over to the UK Super League, played with Catalans, and then you stayed for a couple of years. Played in the first tier local competition in France, but still at the semi-professional level. What was that? How was that? I mean, you stayed for a few years. It's probably a sign in itself.
Yeah, mate, it was awesome. Obviously loved our time in France, and that was a bit the same. There was a bit of a little loophole over there where you could stay for a few years, and we sort of took that up. But it was so enjoyable to go back, after playing professionally for so long. And the reason I retired was not my body. My body was all fine. I was basically mentally, I was just over it. I still enjoyed game days, but I just didn't enjoy it. I wasn't getting any sort of satisfaction out of turning up to training every day to play. And I got to the conclusion that it's not worth doing 5 days I don't enjoy for one that I do. So to go back to Park Footy, I still got that game day where I still enjoyed, and you get back to playing with guys that work all day in their normal job and then come out to train and play because they love it, so it's back for why you started playing rugby league, back with guys playing for the love of it, and I found that awesome.
Obviously different cultural differences between Australia and France, but what about some of the, I suppose, the similarities or differences in like the local footy culture?
Yeah.
Is there anything that kind of comes to mind when you think about, kind of park footy in France and what it's like here, local footy on the Central Coast or anywhere else?
No, very, very much the same. We'd have a win and we'd celebrate it very well. The bus trips to away games and then getting on the bus with all the beers afterwards and stuff like that. So I think footy culture, footy culture is footy culture. I think a lot of guys are similar, like-minded in that sort of sense. But, I think even that, there's quite a few players I know and players that, young Aussie guys that were over there playing in that same comp. And I think that's the beauty is, you don't have to go to NRL level to get some awesome opportunities through rugby league, So there were guys that were, over there playing for clubs and travelling the world and playing, over in Europe, at local league, and just by kicking a footy around, So I think, you don't always have to be at the top level, then you look at different country comps, some of them, you look at a Newcastle and a Wollongong, these comps that are, there's good money for guys. If you're, a handy level player, you can pick up some decent cash through footy, you can still hold down a full-time job, and you can still do pretty well for yourself. So I think that's an awesome part of rugby league.
How's your French?
It's all right. I can hold a conversation. I just speak French with a very Aussie accent. That's the problem. I don't really have the French twang. My kids, they speak French. If you speak to them, they sound like a little French kid, which is awesome.
Really?
And, yeah. And I like that's probably one of my proudest things of my career, really, the fact that I could give my kids the opportunity to travel, to learn a second language and all that. Like, that's pretty cool just by kicking a footy around.
So there's one thing like obviously having a conversation with someone, asking where the shop is or where the station is or what the time is. What about like that footy specific language in French on the field? How did that go? Were there any interesting kind of misunderstandings? Especially being a playmaker, you kind of marshalling the troops around.
Yeah, it probably takes a little bit. So with the Catalans, we were sort of lucky that, a lot of the French boys spoke English. We had an English coach and all that. So a lot of the footy was there. But probably my French got a whole lot better when I stopped and I played local footy because our coach didn't speak English. Some of the boys didn't speak English. So, you had to learn. And that was it. When you're sort of thrust into it and you have no other choice, then you sort of tend to pick it up a lot quicker. But, yeah, so I got to the point, I'm all right one-on-one, but still around the dressing sheds when they speak so quickly. And while you're trying to process what one said, the other one's already spoke, and then you just can't keep up. So, yeah, it still had its challenges.
You spoke before about, sledging and how when the circumstances are right, you don't mind giving it back. How was that in France? Were you on the receiving end of any sprays that you had no idea what they were on about?
No, the funny thing about, learning a second language is some of the unsavoury words tend to be the first ones you learn. So I feel like that's with a lot of people. Do you know this? No, but they know a couple of phrases that you go, that's probably not the best thing to say. So no, you tend to learn a few of those pretty quickly. But
did you get a chance to test out a few of those unsavoury words on the field, mate, just for the laughs?
Oh, mate, only in good spirit, mate. It was a bit the same there, to be honest. Like, there were talks from back in the day that that French comp was really rough, that local French footy back in the day, and I think it's very cleaned up and the same. It was a really good reception from a lot of guys, after games going, mate, it's so awesome to play against you and be on the same field. So, yeah, everywhere I've gone around any sort of local footy, mate, has been a really welcoming environment.
Speaking about, the dressing sheds, the laughs with the boys, I mean, you probably more than most players with a distinguished career, you had a really interesting experience to play for a lot of different clubs. Was it 5 NRL clubs plus Catalans? How was that? Like what are some of the differences, I suppose, between some of the dressing sheds and club cultures and dynamics that you went into throughout your career?
Yeah,
Do you have a few examples of how they were different in certain ways?
I think a lot of them are actually, like, as I said, I think a lot of footy guys are similar mentality. We're all pretty immature, I think, when we get together. And I think the biggest difference I found is obviously over time where, the introduction of phones and, guys spending less time, just mucking around and acting stupid in the sheds and more time just spending on their phone and not having that same interaction, and I think that's a bit of reflection of more society than just footy culture. But, yeah, originally that was all the spare time was just made goofing around and making jokes, playing pranks on different people and all that sort of thing. And I suppose showering naked, that was another one, because originally when I come through, if you dared try and put your undies on the thing, they would have been ripped off you straight away. And then now, there's not many that get the kid off to shower, so that's probably one of the biggest ones.
There you go. And, I mean, as well, throughout your career, like you're on a podcast called the Rugby League Journeyman. You had, a few different clubs. But your career doesn't seem to be like that of the typical journeyman, if I might say so. Like, you played rep footy, successful in a lot of different places you went to, like a grand final in New Zealand, won comps with the Chooks and Cronulla. Could you tell when you first went into a club, into a dressing room, like, oh, we've got something here, we can do something? Was there how long did it take for you to figure that out?
Yeah, I think one of my attributes was I knew rugby league really well. So obviously early on, like going to Melbourne, I went for opportunity and created that. But then from then on, the decision to go to the Roosters, the decision to go to Cronulla, the decision to go to Penrith were all made because I thought we could have success. And it was a side. I think as a halfback, the one thing you need, to have success is nice to play behind a good pack, So I was able to look and go, look, there's a good forward pack for me to play behind, and understanding, I said to a lot of people, I was never the guy who would step 5 guys and score this mad individual try, but I knew how to, get the guy next to me, how to bring out his best footy. I knew how to bring out the guys around me's best footy and put those sort of things together. I think that was, my strength in understanding the game and understanding how we could play to our strengths, and we could, open up opportunities for the other players to show their talents. So, as I said, the first couple were purely through opportunity. But after that, there was a reason I was going to each of those clubs, and, financially I was better off with each of them, but that wasn't the deciding factor. It was going for footy first, and the money takes care of itself after that.
Is there, you've came out of retirement to play for Ourimbah. Is there a chance that you're going to keep going this year, or is that Jimmy Maloney's footy career finished?
I think I'm done. Ourimbah had a chat to me. I sort of said, look, it's probably unlikely I'll go again. As enjoyable as it was, it's nice to just sort of not have that commitment where you're locked in for the whole footy season to, you don't want to go away on a weekend and let the team down and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think so, but mate, who knows? the way I change my thoughts on a dime, who knows? But at the moment, yeah, she's done.
Good. So I can expect you round 1. Sophie Park, is that right?
Nah, she's done.
And where to now? I mean, footy career's over. You had a bit of a taste of coaching at an NRL level with the Cowboys up there as an assistant, doing some stuff here with Brothers Penrith. But you've also got a podcast, the Rugby League Journey. How are you enjoying doing that stuff? And, what do you think the future holds? Like, what are you interested in doing moving forward?
Look, I enjoy the coaching. Like, I really enjoyed my time up at the Cowboys. We're going all right and having some success up there. And, it's unfortunate the way it sort of finished up there. I sort of had an inkling, you know, before that too, that it wasn't the avenue I wanted to go down with the full-time coaching. You know, being for so long, the part of my life had been you black out from mid-November through to the first week of October. Like that, you can't do anything, you know, all that's taken up, and then you live your life with a 6 to 8 week sort of window for holidays and things like that. And when that's been life for so long, it's nice to, you know, have something different where you're not tied down so much. And as I said, coaching full time takes up weekends. So, you know, for so long I miss, you know, being able to watch my kids play and all that. So at the moment, that's just more important to me. So it's nice to, you know, come out to Brothers and, you know, be able to help out and do bits and pieces, but not obligated to turn up every weekend. Still get to have a bit of a life balance. So that's the goal. Try and sort of do a few things here and there, do a lot of speaking gigs and stuff like that at sportsmen's lunches and stuff like that, which is all enjoyable and good fun. So that's sort of the goal. Try and, do different things where you're not locked in 9 to 5 and enjoy the balance of life and, just earn enough to get by.
Sounds like a good plan. Jimmy, thanks so much for taking the time to chat.
Cheers, mate. Too easy.